Not every story has to start with once upon a time, but it couldn't fit better into this one. Once upon a time, on a world by a faraway star, there was a brave four-armed warrior. For hundreds of years, he saw tribes and kingdoms fight and fight again, and in the theaters of wars, he was their star. With sword, spear, and axe, he took lives. No soldier was safe from his wrath, and on over 100 battlefields, more warriors fell to his blade than he cared to remember. He laid hundreds, maybe thousands in shallow graves, making their wives widows and their children orphans. He kept killing and killing until his 1000th year. He saw entire kingdoms die, tribes migrate, gods and cults disappear and appear, and new weapons used on new victims. Yet while everything was changing, nothing truly did. A few would rule while the many obeyed, and those few would come up with nonsense reasons for the many to kill and die. A few people holier than others would claim that their words were the words of gods, words that somehow always entailed giving up possessions and then going out to take lives. In this regard, people were all the same, yet they always found reasons to fight as if they were different animals altogether. The warrior, like his brethren, did not age, but it was agreed that on their 1000th year, those who lived that long were to go meet their gods. Their world had bottomless pits underneath which their gods were said to live, and the warrior was expected to hurl himself in as his neighbors watched. Yet he wanted to live longer. He wanted to live to see his kind survive long enough to think differently. The warrior fled into the desert, with his furious neighbors hot on his heels. At last, he was cornered at a tiny hole large enough for a single animal, and when his pursuers caught up, he fell in. He fell and fell for who knows how long, but he did not meet his doom. After a seemingly endless darkness, he woke up and found himself in a new world. It was a world of people with only 2 arms and brown skin. They were small, but they were intelligent, and they had an endurance like no other creature. They were different from his own kind, but they were similar in that they loved to fight. The warrior had been mysteriously transformed into one of them, so he could blend in. Yet after hundreds of years of it, he found that fighting was still the only thing he could do. So he joined the beings called humans in their endless wars, sometimes as a commander, other times as a simple soldier. He watched as humans made the same mistakes as his race did. Councils of elites became kings by divine right, and those kings gave way to kings given power by the people. Spears and swords became guns and tanks. Many gods became one, and one god became no god. But people continued to fight, and although they could live longer and longer, there was no shortage of humans who killed each other young. Then finally, it happened. Mankind changed. And it was all thanks to a magical box that could allow men and women to glean all the knowledge in the world and talk with other men and women across the globe. Suddenly, thanks to this device called the internet, people knew about why they did what they did, and more importantly, knew about each other. Instead of fighting, they could all be friends. The warrior knew that this was the time when humanity's fate would be decided. Humans had already built bombs that could kill them all 1,000 times over, and now they were building machines that could eventually make them obsolete as a race. The warrior loved humanity and wanted them to survive much longer, and he knew that the only way that was going to happen was if they knew about the lessons of the past. And now that his human form was wearing off and his 3rd and 4th arms were returning, the time had come to lay down his weapons. He was going to teach the world about the people he had met, the things he had seen, and the wisdom he had obtained across his thousands of years of life and death. How's it going? 重なってた胸の音揺さぶっても聞こえないこぼれ落ちたピザこら日常の憂鬱さえため息も出ずに無感情な僕ら Life feel fatty Colors are faded Things it does not exist here 継ぎはぎの心は不安で洗い流された初期衝動呼び覚めして走り出せ拙い言葉思うままにつなぐよあの日のこと忘れない Oh well it's gone What shall I do Pieces I have fell apart Where do you belong Where should I fall What's your last night It's left to fall apart Alright and so my notes are not going to be readily available because my laptop, my other monitor has decided to take the best time to start updating, but let's wing it. Welcome, creatures of all ages. Welcome to the stream. If you are here, that means you're looking for a way out for the unforgiving world you live in, where every creature is shaped into a piece meant to fit into a greater whole, where rather than settling things with wits and strength, men look to an invisible power to solve their problems for them, where you are pulled along a string to wherever you are summoned, like a puppet on a hanger. I can take you away. I can tell you about the world that you left behind far in the past. There will be no comforts where we're going, none of the things you call luxury. But there is honor, there is adventure, and there is danger. I go by many names in my world. Warlord, Conqueror, Fleshrender, Champion Slayer. But you may call me Zosimus Tarkas, after Zosimus, a historian hundreds of years old who dared to think differently when kings and hierophants wanted everyone to think the same, and Taras Tarkas, a brave warrior of Mars who adventured with a man from Earth. Why am I here? I'm here to play video games and spout nonsense. Let me share a few things before we go on our journey. Let's see. Slideshow. Eight. I am the warlord of Thrax. Wait, no, that's not that. And I am the warlord of Thrax. I was born I am the warlord of Thrax. I was born 3,302 years ago, on the day of February 27th. I have 4 arms, as you can see, preferably 2 to hold weapons, and 2 to do other things, like hold books. I am 8 foot tall and 3 inches. However, this is actually relatively short for my people, the Thraxians. I'm also 435 pounds, also fairly small. And currently, the clothing I'm wearing now is the clothing I preferred to wear across my thousands of years. It is a toga from the late Roman Republic, where I served as a senator. And the whole book I'm holding in my hand is a copy of Historia Nova by Zosimus. Zosimus being the last major pagan intellectual in the Roman Empire. When it had converted to Christianity, he wrote a history of the Roman Empire from a pagan perspective. Historia Nova literally translates to new history. So I like a lot of things. My likes and dislikes are too many to count, but I will name a few. Oh. I like heavy metal music, tabletop RPGs, horror movies, and as my name suggests, ancient and classic literature. I'm currently in the works of reading several ancient texts from classical writers, including Veda-Vyasa's Mahabharata, and of course Zosimus' Historia Nova, and later I plan to read Herodotus's Histories, Manetho's Aegyptica, and Plutarch's Lives, all of which I might do streams talking about. I like too many heavy metal genres to name, but my favorites are probably grindcore and melodic death metal. Favorite band currently is Avatar, but I also like Typo Negative. I think my voice is pretty similar to Peter Steele's of Typo Negative, rest in peace. Also Glory Hammer and Angus McSix, and Deviloof. Deviloof is our fucking gods. And TTRPGs, I usually play Pathfinder 2nd Edition, but I do like playing custom homebrew systems. One of my friends has created a really good custom system for general RPGs in any setting. So I'm playing that right now with a group, but if I do ultimately start a group with a bunch of my streamer friends, like I hope to, it's probably going to be Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Let's see, I love horror movies. You may have seen a few of my other streams of, Chilla's Art Games. I played The Convenience Store, and I told you, I don't really like getting jump scared because I'm autistic, I'm diagnosed autistic, and I am sound sensitive. But I do, however, like the horror aesthetic very much. And of course, I do like Warhammer, and yes, before you ask, I do play Total War Warhammer 3, but I do prefer the historical, the historical Total War games, which I play a lot of on streams. I read a lot of manga on and off, but my current favorite has to be Mikito Yamaguchi's Dead Tube. It whets my appetite for gore and brutality. Though of course I wouldn't condone any of that in real life. If it's a way of escaping from the mundane realities of the world and reconnecting with my primal roots. Other manga I follow are Shumatsu no Valkyrie, Satanofani, Haruhi Suzumiya, Shiki, Chainsaw Man, Chainsaw Folk for Life, and Higurashi no Nakokoro ni, essential part of my childhood. And if I do end up doing a guerrilla stream eventually, a few guerrilla streams eventually, I will end up streaming the visual novel. So, I'm a VTuber, and as you can tell, probably guess, Zosimus loves Japan. My first ever introduction was Ju-on the Grudge. I remember watching this on YouTube when you could do that for free when I was really young. It still honestly gives me nightmares to this day. The long-haired ghost and the idea that there's this curse, death curse that you can't escape from that spreads like a virus. It's something that I can never really let go of. But yeah, I'm a sucker for all things Japanese. Japanese heavy metal, including Cold Rain, Crystal Lake, Diren Grey, and Deviloof. But I also do listen to a bit of J-pop. I especially like the bands and DJ units of Bang Dream and D4DJ, as well as the Vocaloid producers Yuppe and Livetune, as well as Clarice and Myth and Royd, so can't really get enough of Anisong. Haven't played a variety of games in the past because I like to pick a few games and stick with them for a while. So Persona 5 definitely left a big impression on me, and I romanced Ann in my first playthrough. For me, it's unusual, but for me, yes, Ann is best girl. I also like Gravity Rush and Final Fantasy 3, but one of the bigger problems with JRPGs for me is that I don't like to grind. I don't like to grind. I run away from too many of the battles I go through because of my ADHD not wanting to do repetitive tasks, and as of that, when I get to important boss battles, I lose because I'm underleveled. And Haruhi Suzumiya is just I'm part of the Church of Haruhi for life. Haruhism. Read the entire series, watched the anime, watched The Melancholy of Haruhi-chan Suzumiya. Nagaro Tanagawa, the writer, has a impeccable sense of wit. And I'm still keeping up with his books while he releases them to this day. So, what kind of streams would I like to do? Well, here we go. First of all, game streams, obviously. Like I said, I played several of the Total War games regularly, and they can serve as a pretty good backdrop for a lot of my history info dumps. I also love the Assassin's Creed games, and I plan to make several videos about them. I have not actually tried any Paradox games yet, because it's a big rabbit hole that I still have yet to just push myself to fall into, just like I've fallen into the rabbit hole of VTubers. But I'll get to them after I summon up the motivation. And there are plenty of other games I want to play this way. I'm planning to make, along with my streams, I'm planning to make a series of really long videos in the future. I've already made a fairly long video for, what is it, something called, oh yeah, Assassin's Creed. If you haven't seen it, go check it out sometime. It's one of the highlights of my relatively short career as a VTuber. Although my model isn't actually in it. In future longer videos, my model will be in it. And karaoke. The song I sang earlier was Just Awake by Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the first ending to the anime Hunter x Hunter. I have a baritone voice, so most of the songs I pick will be fit for that pitch, and a lot of the songs I sing will be in Japanese, so forgive me if I mangle any of the pronunciations. I also do metal harsh vocals, as you can see, and I'm slowly learning, and my voice has yet to mature. the song I just sung, I can't do fry screams yet, so I ended up just doing a shitty false chord scream instead. At any rate, you get to witness my metamorphosis from an amateur into a rock star. And then I'm planning to do a series of literature reviews as well. Like I said, I'm really into classic literature, not just ancient works, but also old pop fiction. Oh, Age of Empires 2, yeah, my reflexes and my, actions per minute are not that great, but I'm slowly trying to teach myself how to do, multiplayer RTS, and, micromanaging is something that I never actually, fully learned to do. The best I can do is look around the map while playing League of Legends or Smite. Oh no, you can't look around the map in Smite, you can in League of Legends. But yeah, I I'm really into a lot of old pop fiction, like Robert E. Howard's Conan the Barbarian and Edgar Rice Burroughs' Barsoom. A lot of this stuff, in my opinion, goes under the radar of the popular imagination. The last time we had a Conan movie was 8 years ago. What, Jason Momoa was in it, right? I forget, but it wasn't very good. And John Carter, based on Edgar Rice Burroughs' Barsoom, came out in 2014. Despite being a Disney movie made for family-friendly audiences, it was pretty good. It was not something to really write home about, but I think it was pretty good. But yeah, a lot of the stuff goes under the radar, but I think there's a plethora of people out there who just need to get introduced to really old high-class stuff. And I think streams discussing cool topics like this are underdone. I'm currently in the works of reading, Edgar Rice Burroughs' Tarzan, and I will point out before we go in, Edgar Rice Burroughs was kind of an asshole. He was big into eugenics. Old Conan with Arnold Schwarzenegger is the best, absolutely. To crush their women, drive them away, and hear the lamentations of their enemies, or something like that. But yeah, Edgar Rice Burroughs really believed in eugenics. Tarzan apparently is a big testament to that. A lot of the stories of Tarzan describe the superiority of the Anglo-Saxon race, but I think most people these days I honestly think most people these days, more people than you give them credit for, are able to separate asshole creators from the bops they create, the bangers they create. If possible, I also wouldn't mind doing manga read-alongs, anime watch-alongs. Once I find enough followers, I'll create a Discord, and I'll start doing watch-alongs. There are a few important history-related series that I wouldn't mind going over, and if I go through it with you guys, that's even better. I especially have my eyes on Historiae, manga about Alexander's general Eumenes, Ad Astra about Hannibal and Scipio, Kestus, which is a sports manga about pugilists in Rome during the reign of Nero, and of course Kingdom, which is a manga about the Warring States period in China. So I'm planning to stream every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 p.m. PST, guaranteed. There's also a manga about Napoleon. A stream reciting the entire Aeneid from memory. I can recite a chapter of it, maybe. But yeah, streams every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 p.m. PST, guaranteed. If normally I like to prepare, I like to create a series of notes to go over, usually at the beginning of the stream, about the historical context. But if I don't have any notes, I'll play something less historical, usually like a horror game. From the author of The Rose of Versailles. Oh, there's not just that. There are a series of manga volumes of something called History Through Manga, and I believe the cover for the section Napoleon was done by Araki, creator of JoJo. And one thing I'm going to do, just to give you guys an incentive to follow my Twitter, every day I'm going to be posting a random historical fact about it, quite often from some of the less likely and less obvious parts of the world. We're going to start today. Let's see. The island of Mayotte in the archipelago of Comoros off the northern coast of Madagascar was nearly depopulated by the time of the mid-19th century, with the population being reduced by war and slave raids to only 1,500 people by the 1830s. Eventually, the threat of violence was so great that the Sultan of Mayotte, Andriant Soli, sold his control over the island to the French. So France went and abolished slavery on the island and repopulated it using imported free laborers. And it actually remains a French territory to this day, after the majority of islanders, contrary to the other island, different from the other islands in Comoros, voted against independence in a 1974 archipelago-wide referendum. So they voted to continue being French. Ryoko Ikeda, looking that up right now. The Rose of Versailles, and Eiko no Napoleon, Eroica. Apparently it is the official sequel to The Rose of Versailles. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. But yeah, that is a little factoid about the tiny archipelago of Comoros. Hey, hey, JPZ. It's good to see you. I'm actually just about to wrap up here. And full-length videos every 2 months, for sure. So, like I said, currently I've got my first actual, like, well thought out and well animated historical video is one on Assassin's Creed. The next one I'm working on is going to be on Grand Theft Auto and San Andreas, with about the gangs of California and organized crime in the Southwest. And let's see. The reason I'm not streaming as often as I can is, first of all, because I have a day job that I want to devote attention to. I am, despite being an ancient warlord with 4 arms, I also am on that Sigma grind. And I'm not very good at budgeting my time due to my autism and ADHD. And second, a big part of my channel is going to be longer videos. The Assassin's Creed video has been one of my finest moments so far, but a few games I'm planning to play in the future are, one is Neo, about how history accurate was Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. It has some things that you can refer to, like things. It does take place in the early 1990s, and there are some things that I can at least talk about that probably aren't that probably aren't accurately presented, but I can rectify. For example, the crack cocaine epidemic, which started in the 80s. There's some interesting historical economic context behind that, so I'm going to go into that. Also would like to play The Saboteur. an open world game about the French resistance during World War II. And there are a few parts of history that I'm hoping to go over in the near future. First of all, there's the Iberians. Ancient Iberia, in my opinion, is one of the more underappreciated parts of the ancient world, even if we don't know much about it. They had a system of writing with characters similar to Greek, and although we can't translate the vocabulary, they were master craftsmen with an advanced form of steel making, and a lot of their military tactics were actually eventually adopted by the Romans, such as the Cantabrian Circle. Then there is the ancient Gauls. Most of what we know about the ancient Gauls comes from the Romans, talking about how they walked all over them, about how Kaiser kicked their asses. But the fact is that the Latena culture of the continental Celts spread across Europe, finding itself in modern France, Spain, Germany, the Balkans, and even the region of Galatia and Turkey, which you may know from Galatians, the book of Galatians in the Bible. They had a highly advanced and urbanized culture, largely hobbled by the fact that they didn't record their history in writing. Then there is the Picts. Once again, we don't know much about them, so a lot of what I discuss will be speculation based on Roman descriptions and archaeology, but of course I can also talk about Robert E. Howard's fictional history of how the Picts are descended from Atlantis. I also want to go over the conquests of Alexander. Alexander was, without a doubt, one of the greatest tacticians in history. He adopted a form of combined armed warfare in an era when tactics revolved around, almost entirely around. William von Humboldt has some works in the ancient Spanish language, like Euskera. Oh, I'm definitely looking that up. Thank you. Greek culture was so expansive thanks to Alexander that by the time of early Roman expansion, Greek was basically the lingua franca of the Mediterranean and the Middle East. I'm not sure how true is this, but a lot of the Jews in ancient Israel in Aramea might actually have been able to speak Greek as well as Hebrew, as well as Aramaic. That's why Jesus refers to hell as Hades. No, that he also refers to it as Gehenna, but translation is kind of weird in that. Then, of course, there's medieval Japan. I wouldn't be a true combination of a history tuber and VTuber if I didn't talk about the samurai. Here's where I'll start about that. Samurai comes from the archaic word. Saburao, which means to serve. So samurai were not exactly warrior nobles and nobles as much as, well, they were, but it changed over time, and one of the most famous when we think about samurai with their katanas and the like, we're often thinking of the Edo period, in which samurai didn't actually own their own land. They were class with a stipend from the government that served as bodyguards for daimyos, lords who were allowed by the shogun to collect taxes. Eastern history is something I've overlooked for a while, so I'll have to do a lot of research, but what really fascinates me so much is how much Japanese society and its social hierarchy evolved over time. It evolved over the years, despite being such an isolated region. The most straightforward game to play while talking about it is Ghost of Tsushima, which is definitely on my list. Also want to go over the Yakuza Wars. This is, of course, just so I can get an excuse to play Yakuza 0, but I'm still pretty interested in learning about how organized crime in such a safe country can develop such a ritualized culture and have so much of a cultural presence. Especially since it has such a stereotypical culture of honor, despite the fact that the Yakuza largely evolved from low-level hoodlums and social outcasts such as the illicit peddlers known as Tekiya in feudal Japan. And then there's Norway. When people think of Vikings, they're often thinking of the great heathen army of pagan warriors that invaded Britain. But medieval Norway made its mark in the world in pretty diverse ways, ranging from the wandering raiders and explorers that eventually colonized Iceland, Greenland, and for a while Finland and Canada, to the devout Christians that sailed all the way from Britain to Israel to take part in the First Crusade. And finally, and also on my list is Venice. I was originally planning to make a video about medieval Venice using Total War. But to be honest, making videos using Total War is pretty exhausting, especially since the mod I'm using is pretty frustrating sometimes, so I'll probably stream it instead. Venice was a pretty fascinating part of the medieval world since it maintained a republican government in the era of kings and warlords. And of course, their leader had a funny name, the Doge of Venice, the Doge of Venice. Rest in peace, Kabosu-chan. And the Cambridge History of China. If you're interested in Asian history, try the Cambridge History of China. Yes, I will definitely do that. Actually, my next reading project is history of Russian Orthodox Christianity and the various schisms that went on in it. Because I'm hoping to eventually do a playthrough of Indica, a horror movie where you play as a nun in a Russian convent. I am a little alien with big dreams. In the short run, I'd like to obtain 100 subscribers. I'm hoping that if I make enough long-form videos, a few more champions will come in hopes of learning more about the untold stories of the past. In particular, I'm hoping of making at least 5 more long full-length videos by the time the year is done. I'd also like to have a bit more of a social media presence. I don't spend much time on Instagram and Facebook, but I'd like to get at least 100 followers on Twitter. Like I said, tune in on Twitter for to see a random historical fact from one of the unexpected parts of the world every day. In the long term, I'd like to see if I can get at least a few of my other smaller streamer friends to make a bit of time for a tabletop RPG stream. Tabletop RPGs are hard to follow by outsiders, but I'm hoping I can make something that's fun for both the players and viewers. Also, I'd like to teach a few people, this war game called Bolt Action, a World War II Bolt game. Like Warhammer Fantasy is, and Warhammer 40k is kind of, it's a big rabbit hole, but I know there's a lot of historical weapon fans among the streaming community that I'm part of. Anyways, it would be a dream come true if I could collab with my one and only Oshi, Micah Mallow. If you haven't heard of her, go subscribe to her as soon as possible. She is an adorable little cinnamon roll that deeply loves her fans and works hard at her craft and puts enormous amount of passion into everything she does. Collabing with her would be a dream come true. And overall, I'm hoping I can put out enough streams and enough videos to get 1,000 hours of watch time. I don't expect to be monetized anytime soon, but I'm hoping my champions can have enough fun to stick with me. Micah is your Oshi. Yes, very much. Micah is... Micah, Queen of the Bermuda Triangle. Ultimately, I may be a warlord of Thrax, but I am proud to call myself her vassal in the blender or something. If things go really well and my conquest in the internet achieves fruition, I do have a dream of collabing with one of my favorite history tubers. My favorite currently are Skalagrim, the Weaponsmeister, Stakuyi, the Butcher of Reckoning, and the undisputed Master of Raffleness. Yes, Champions is my viewer name. So these history tubers are less my senpais than my senseis, but still, I'd like them to get them to notice me, like senpais. But for now, I'm okay with having a tiny group of dedicated followers, more friends than fans, because I'll always take 5 legendary champions over 1,000 cowardly recruits. By the way, I just wanted to tell you guys, today is Memorial Day in the US. A very happy Memorial Day to everyone, and let's take a moment to remember the fallen soldiers who... I think Kiki has that same viewer name. She calls them the champies and the peons, lol. Well, you can't copyright an idea that old. But yeah, let's take a moment to remember all the people who suffered so that we can enjoy things like this stream right now. Remember, Napoleon said, soldiers are the ones who generally win battles. Generals just usually get credit for them. And... soldiers are the innocent people who go out and fight it after being duped into promises of glory and plunder by their leaders, and ultimately have to kill and die for the mistakes of powerful people who have never worked a day in their life. And together, let's build a world where there's nothing to kill and die for. The only things to die for are there's only things to live for. So happy Memorial Day, everyone. Tomorrow I am going to start researching for my next few streams. I'm going to do a spicy noodle eating stream while reviewing Tarzan of the Apes. Eventually, I'm eventually going to do a roleplay stream about the Gauls. If you haven't seen my roleplay streams, what I basically do is I create elaborate backstories for all the nobles in my faction on Rome Total War 2, and I play with random events for them to create a narrative. Obviously not as exciting as Giga's Grand Theft Auto roleplay streams, but I think it's fun. And tomorrow, just to tide you guys over until my next research project, I'm going to play another Chilla's art game, Shinkansen Zero. But thank you guys so much for sticking through this. You guys are my champions, and you have made history. Congratulations, because you've certainly made your mark in history in my life. So thank you guys so much for coming, and expect more to come.